What's going on, everyone? This is Vince from Life with Vince Lou. Check out this video between Cody on the left, serial entrepreneur, and Fernando on the right, sports psychologist from my jiu-jitsu gym. Enjoy.
So we have Fernando here. He is one of our awesome brown belts that comes on Friday and rolls our 4 10-minute rounds, which is usually pretty difficult, but very rewarding and a lot of fun. So maybe a little bit about yourself and where you came from.
So right now my main background is in sports psychology, so I do a lot of working with athletes, consulting with teams, all on the mental side of sport. And coincidentally, the reason why I wanted to do jiu-jitsu is because I'm a big believer of that you practice what you preach. And if I'm not myself trying to enhance my own mental conditioning, then I'm not going to be able to be as credible. So I put myself in the environment of jiu-jitsu to really test myself mentally, because it's a sport where you're put in a lot of uncomfortable positions, and you need to learn how to be comfortable in those situations, whether it's in competition, whether it's in certain like whether you're in mount, back mount, you're about to get submitted, whatever it is, you need to be able to use certain mental tools to get yourself comfortable in these situations. And a big part of it too is this idea of commitment. And I think for me the biggest reason why I'm a brown belt is because I just kept going. I don't think I'm really spectacular or extraordinary for being a brown belt, but I think it's just time in.
What's the old adage? Black belts are just white belts that never quit. Is that the? Yeah, that's pretty much it, right?
Just got my time on the mats. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I feel like I found jiu-jitsu through wrestling, I guess. And my story kind of came from being a high school wrestler and then not really being good enough to do college wrestling, and still wanted to be physical and still wanted to have that kind of outlet, because there's nothing like wrestling and that I don't want to say animosity, but like the controlled aggression that happens is very, very exciting to me.
No, I was thinking the same thing. A big part of my outside life, right? You have to be somewhat composed. If I'm working with an athlete, I mean, I'm not going to be yelling at them. I got to be in a certain mode. But on the mats, there's the freedom to let out this aggression, especially physical aggression against somebody else, and understanding that the other person's anticipating it, so it's a back and forth.
Human chess.
Yeah.
Human chess all day long, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I really found it in college, but I think that I chose fraternity life over like a really serious jiu-jitsu career. So I kind of jumped into jiu-jitsu and jumped back out, and didn't really take it seriously, and then I found another gym that was more of a MIC dojo, and it was taught by an Aikido instructor, and it wasn't really the greatest experience. Then I came out here and I found that there's levels to this, right? Coach always says there's levels, right? And I really found a home in Northern California Jiu-Jitsu, because it was just it's a really great community, and everybody pushed everybody. It was really good, and found this gym, and it was just very, it feels more than just a sport. It feels like a family. It feels like home. I know that's very cliche and people say that all the time, but I really truly feel like that here.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting, I mean, if we talk about sports psychology, one big component of motivation is a sense of relatedness. So do you feel related to the people around you, like community? And if you do, you're more likely to stay motivated. Another big community that people talk about a lot is CrossFit, right? Like there's that joke that
the cult of CrossFit.
If you do CrossFit, the only thing you talk about is CrossFit. And the same thing I think with jiu-jitsu. If you do jiu-jitsu, sometimes the only thing you talk about is jiu-jitsu. But it's important to have a community, because if you don't have it, you're less likely to be motivated. And again, if we're talking about commitment and mat time, you're probably not going to put it in.
Yeah, it's almost that social peer pressure, because people see you and they miss you and they like your personality. They'll even say, "Hey man, I haven't seen you in a week," or "Are you doing okay? You look like you're down today." And you haven't been on the mat lately. Like, is everything all right? And that gives this sport, I think, a little bit more of that sense of community and accountability almost. Because I feel like I don't want to let my community down, and I want to see all my buddies, and I want to be here, even if I'm sick or if I'm injured and I have to sit against the wall and watch. I still want to be here, and I feel like maybe I can learn something through osmosis and just
you can.
being in the room,
Right. But what you saying that reminds me of there's a sports psychology study on basketball teams. I forget what year it was that they were looking at it, but they looked at the championship teams and they measured how many times they touch each other. And the higher performing teams touch each other more, like whether it's hand slaps, pat on the butt, high fives, whatever it is. Higher performing basketball teams touch more, and I think there's something also about physical touch that's really important when it comes to jiu-jitsu. And I think just in human life in general, this idea of like giving somebody a hug. And so I think jiu-jitsu, this heightened form of aggressive cuddling, is really important for people to feel connected, again, with the community, with the sport.
Especially being grounded in your own body.
Right.
A lot of people don't have the spatial awareness that's required to do sports. And then when you do jiu-jitsu, it's taken to the infinite level, right?
Right.
So you have to have this bodily awareness, this situational awareness, to be able to be okay under pressure, to be comfortable when you're in a state of heightened stress and a heightened anxiety. Remember to breathe, something that should be automatic, right? Yeah. And all of a sudden it feels like I have to remind myself to breathe. And all the things that seem that are important in my life and that I'm worried about and that I have anxiety about don't seem so important when I have Paulo sitting on me in side control and I'm struggling to lift my chest up to be able to fill my lungs with air.
Right. The only thing you're thinking about is either survival.
Oh, 100%.
You're not thinking about work, family, home. Is just like, what am I doing in that moment?
And there's something so cleansing about that. Like, maybe you can expound on that, about how when I come into the gym, I can leave all that other stuff behind me, and I get this cleansing through almost fire and physical aggression, to where none of the other stuff matters. For at least an hour, none of the other stuff that I'm worried about matters.
I think what it is, I mean, there's a lot of research on mindfulness, being in the present moment, not thinking about anything else, whether it's the past or the future, right? It's just, you're here. And I think jiu-jitsu forces you to be in the present, because if you're not in the present, you're at risk of being choked out, arms getting ripped off, whatever it is. And so through these rounds, whether 5 minutes or 10 minutes, you are focusing so much in that moment that once it's done, that's why it maybe feels so clear, because it's like you put yourself in the present moment for so long that afterwards everything else kind of dissipates, because you're not worried about the stress or the anxiety that you're facing. But then there's also a big component on physical exertion. There's a book out there, I don't remember the title of it, but I'll remember it hopefully soon, but talks about by you exerting physical energy, it helps cleanse your mind, but also helps you learn a lot better. So if you're ever trying to, for school purposes, right, or whatnot, if you're getting ready for tests and you need to study, do some physical exercise beforehand, before you hit the books, because it primes your brain. It's
almost like wiping the blackboard clean.
Yeah, exactly.
So that you have a clean slate, so that you can actually input new memories and new information.
So I think it's a mixture. So if we're talking about anxiety or stress, right, there's a big part of it which is problem solving. So by physically exerting my energy, right, I'm not putting energy towards my doubts and the worries and stress. So that's one slate clean. But because my mind is so clear, the energy that I do give to my problems is now that much more focused. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes 100%.
It's more crystal clear, like, oh, this is what I need to be doing, or this is what I should do. Or maybe it's just a matter of perspective, that I don't give as much importance or weight to the stress or the issues that I'm facing, because in retrospect, like, survival mode is way more important than sending an email to somebody.
It really allows you to put things into perspective.
Right.
So now that we're gathering all of these skills on the mat, right? How do we take this mindfulness? How do we take this wiping the slate clean to be able to input new information? How do we take that and translate it into our everyday life?
Just do jiu-jitsu wherever you go.
Mental jiu-jitsu, right?
Just take someone to the ground.
just take them down, just choke them. I feel like business negotiations would be so much easier if I'm just dominating someone.
Hand slap, bump. Like, this is how I solve my problems at work.
Yep, so. Absolutely.
I don't know. It's a good question. I think I don't have to think about it. That book, though, I think it's called Spark.
Yep.
that talk about physical energy and learning.
Yeah, we'll put that book in the show notes.
But how do
so
you,
people can look into
so
it.
how do you use this idea of being present in the moment? So you can practice mindfulness everywhere you go. Simple ways like washing your hands, brushing your teeth, washing the dishes, simple things. Put yourself in the moment, in the present. Even writing an email, like really paying attention to what your fingers are doing as you're writing that email to help you put yourself in that moment. Yeah, I don't know. I have to think about that a little bit more.
I think one of the things that I try to bring off the mat with me is when I'm eating, you know, and that sounds really silly, but when I'm eating, I used to just shovel the food in because food is fuel, and you know, I was fueling up for my next match. I was fueling up because I'm trying to cut weight, or I'm always doing something for food. So I'm not conscious about me being mindful about eating. And so I end up finishing the meal and I just feel awful when I should be feeling good, right? Well, when I finish jiu-jitsu, I feel good, but I should feel awful. Like I just put my body through all of this work and all this stress. So to me, I draw the parallel and say, okay, well, what did I do? Well, I slowed down when I was doing jiu-jitsu and I stayed present and I thought about everything that I was doing. So now when I'm eating, I try to slow down. I try to take a bite and I put my fork down. And then I just chew or talk or do whatever, and then I pick my fork up again and I take another bite. So instead of just keeping my fork in my hand and just shoveling it in, I try to be more mindful about putting my fork down, grabbing my fork, and actually being mindful about the bite that I'm taking. And so that's one of the ways that I try to pull something from the mat into my everyday life. And
is that how you train too? Are you more deliberate in your training?
I feel like I am now. When I first came here, I wasn't. I think I was more intimidated and scared, and then
shoveling your food in and just attack, or defend. Okay, so the question is, how do you take the elements of jiu-jitsu into your life?
And you were talking about how spazzy I was when I first started. Because it was just like shoveling food in my mouth, shoveling technique in, just trying to just defend and just survive, And now I feel like I try to concentrate on one technique, or I try to concentrate on just defending, or just attacking, and depending on who I'm rolling with. And I feel that brings me a peace because I'm more mindful of what my intention is, I guess. Intention-based jiu-jitsu, I guess, is what I'm trying to do instead of just be reactive, right?
Yeah, I think, well, I had a conversation with another person that comes here, and we're talking about just jiu-jitsu in general and how to react or how to respond. And I was telling them, like when I teach like counseling skills or when I teach people how to listen, we talk a lot about listening to listen, not listening to respond. Like, oh, this is my turn to talk. I'm just taking a little bit of information. I'm waiting for my time to respond. And I felt like at times in my jiu-jitsu was very much that way, where like, okay, I'm just waiting for my time to do something rather than really paying attention to what was going on. And that's something I've been trying to work on a lot more, is just this idea of like, what is happening basically on the other side? What's my opponent doing and what am I doing? Not really thinking about what am I going to do next, just being present, again, being really extra present in the moment. And so that concept, I think, is translated in other parts of my life of listening. Like if this is a conversation, I'm listening to listen and not necessarily having to respond right away. Or maybe in some of the work that I'm doing is just maybe being more receptive to like, okay, well, what do I need to do in this moment, rather than like jumping in and attacking it recklessly. Like, I guess giving it more quality attention rather than quantity.
Absolutely. Yeah, I feel like a lot of, especially, you know, because you come from a sports psychologist position. I come from more of like a marriage and family psychology, and I think about when couples talk to each other, and they're already formulating a response based off of the first thing that their spouse said, without even hearing the rest of whatever the sentence was, because they're so ready and waiting for their turn to
defend
talk,
themselves,
because they want to defend that one point that they heard. and all the rest of the stuff gets lost, you know. So that's an excellent point, and maybe we can all remind each other to just listen, to really truly be present and listen to what the person's saying instead of trying to wait to formulate whatever you're trying to say and then jump whenever there's a break or a pause so that you can talk too and get your point in.
How do you think you do that within jiu-jitsu though?
I think looking at jiu-jitsu is very formulaic.
Right.
Is the way that I have been doing it lately. I've been saying, okay, you know, this is the concept. I need to be able to control at least one wrist, and I need to have one collar, right? And that's all I need to do. So all the other noise that's coming in at me, you know, I can let it happen, but I know that my end goal is to get one collar and one sleeve. So I'm listening to the person communicate to me with their body. But at the same time, I'm not just saying, oh, nope, you can't have that grip. Oh, no, you can't have that. Oh, no, oh gosh, I forgot. I need to get mine. You know? So scrambling by trying to defend or retort whatever you're saying, because we're in an argument, albeit physical, not, you know, verbal. I push all that stuff to the side. And I just think about, okay, I need to think about what my goal is and go for it. Or else I'm just going to be reactive the whole time. And when you're arguing with someone, it's very easy to fall into that, I'm just going to be reactive. And then you forget whatever you're arguing about. Like I always tell the couples that I deal with that you know, fight fair and argue about whatever the issue is. And remember, it's you're on the same team. It's you and her, you and him against the issue. It's not you and her against each other. And so I try to remind people of that. And so that's what I pull into jiu-jitsu, is that this is my end goal. I have to remember that all the other noise and all the other stuff that's coming at me.
So I'm just going to focus on one or two elements.
And that's my very elementary understanding of it, because, you know, I know that as I progress in my jiu-jitsu career, I may have a more complex answer. But right now, where I'm at as a blue belt, I just try to focus on one thing and then do that. Then I can focus on other stuff later, because if I try to think about all the other noise, I'm just going to get in an argument.
And I think we're going really deep in this idea of like real life versus and jiu-jitsu, right? An element, because you said you'd mentioned like control, right? And for me, what kind of spoke to me, and kind of knowing you a little bit, is this idea of like you want to find control. I'm kind of like almost a little bit of the opposite. In certain ways, I'm still trying to find control, but what I'm actually trying to do is more so of accept. Like I've accepted what is happening in front of me and what position I'm in, and that helps me so much. What you're saying, that helps me eliminate a lot of maybe like this outside noise that I need to go like, okay, he's in mount. This is my life now. What do I need to do?
This is me.
This is it. It sucks. Okay, I've accepted it, right? I've accepted that. What do I need to do? How do I move? Where are my openings? Because I think a lot of people who first start off, once they're in that bad situation, they get scared and they don't necessarily accept it. It's like, okay, this is where I'm at. They're panic and they'll make a lot more mistakes. So I think this idea of what we're kind of circling back, this whole idea of like, how do we bring this idea of being present, right, in jiu-jitsu. It could be one or two things, like focusing on one or two elements, as well as maybe just accepting the position and what you're up against, rather than trying to fight or have too many thoughts in your head at once.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think
that was pretty meta.
Yeah, well,
that was pretty deep.
Well, I just
start talking about psychology.
Well, when you and I get together, we're gonna look at it at a different kind of angle, a different way. But I think those are some good takeaways from. You know, maybe our experience on the mat, and then what we take with us into our everyday life. Do you have any closing points?
For them to gas out because they don't.
I don't know. Maybe.
Like they don't gas out in 10 minutes.
In jiu-jitsu, I think. Well, I don't know. It's probably a lot. Do you have a better? Well, not better. Do you have a different? I don't know.
I'll keep that one in my back.
That's okay not to know, right? Like, I feel like I come into this gym and I don't know a lot. Like, and I get on the mat and I'm like, wow, I am in this position and I just don't know.
Yeah.
And it's tough because you don't know what you don't know. And again, that goes right back to life. Is that if you don't know what you don't know, sometimes it's hard to ask the questions to get the right answers to succeed.
Right.
So I guess that's what we're all doing, right? It's just trying to figure out what we don't know.
It goes back to the mat time. Just keep going, just keep going.
Just keep going, just keep doing.
Yeah.
I appreciate it, man.
Thanks.
Thank you for the time.
You got it. Bye, everyone.
From the bottom.
There you go, Vin.
Even good?
Yep.
Like even in Muay Thai, right? Like
That was good,
like,
15-20, I think.
people who do
Thanks for
stand-up-
tuning in. So that was Cody and Fernando. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. Comments, questions, concerns down below. I wasn't able to listen to most of that podcast because I was out there doing some stuff. But if you have any questions, I was doing pull-ups. So if you have any questions, comment down below. If you haven't already subscribed, please consider subscribing. Other than that, see y'all soon.
Like it.